Hello dear students, this is Business Research Methods and Project Work course tutorial. This is tutorial 3.1. The topic I am going to discuss is questionnaire designing. Learning objective is to understand the process of questionnaire designing. Well, before proceeding to the tutorial, here I am presenting 3 questions to you and you need to answer this question in my Google Classroom. You post the answer in the comment section. The first question is, questionnaire is a tool for secondary data collection. State true or false. Question 2, whether the method of administration of the questionnaire influence the questionnaire designing. State yes or no. Third question, which of the following section in a questionnaire is important for encouraging respondents to give their responses and involved in the study? Forward and opening questions, generic information questions, then specific information questions. So you post your answers in comment section in my Google Classroom. Now before beginning, you see this is a questionnaire, or you can say this is a feedback form that I have received in my email, and therefore I want you to see this form, and after that we will discuss about questionnaire designing. So here you have noticed there are 4 questions. Of these 4 questions, the 3 questions are close-ended question and 1 question is open-ended question. So what is this close-ended and open-ended question? I am discussing a little after. A questionnaire is a formalized set of questions involving one or more measurement scales and one or more types of item to collect specified primary data. In simple language, a questionnaire is a tool for data collection, and that data is primary data, or you can say first-hand data. The questions asked must be created in a format in which respondent will understand and be willing to answer them. So why you know the reason? Because in a questionnaire, the respondents, they need to read the questions and after that interpret it and record the responses themselves. And that's why the questions that are presented in a questionnaire, it should be easily understandable for the respondents. The questionnaire should be so designed that respondents are encouraged and motivated to become involved in the process. And therefore, there are a lot of things that need to be considered while designing a questionnaire. There are some rules of logic, there are some principles, and there are some matters that need to be especially considered while designing a questionnaire. A well-designed questionnaire would generally overcome the problem of disengagement. The questionnaire design process involves some established rules of logic, objectivity, and systematic procedure. Here you have seen the process of questionnaire designing. The first stage is a specification of the information needed in researchable format. It is followed by selection of method of administration of the questionnaire, then determination of question composition, then determination of individual question content. After that, developing question order, form and layout, then pilot testing the questionnaire. So these are the stages in designing a questionnaire. Now let's discuss step 1, that is specification of the information needed in researchable format. So as you already learned, the questionnaire, that is a tool for primary data collection. The researcher should look at the research objectives and hypotheses and determine the information needed. It is also important for the researcher to have a clear idea of target population and sample, the characteristics of the respondent, have great influence on questionnaire design. Now, after determining the information need, the second stage is selection of method of administration of the questionnaire. It means how the questionnaire to be presented to the respondents or how the questions to be asked to the respondent. Because the method of administration such as personal interview, mail interview, telephonic interview, fax, internet-based interview, this will influence how the questionnaire should be designed. Say, in personal interview, personal interaction is possible and thereby the respondents can give instant feedback and clear their doubts and confusion relating to questions. So, in a physical format of a questionnaire. So where say the interviewer or the investigator is present in front of the respondent, that time if the respondent is not able, respondent is finding it difficult to understand the question, then that time the investigator can explain it. So that opportunity is there in personal interview. In case of telephonic interview, respondent cannot see the questionnaire and it is quite hard to ask complex and lengthy questions. Because just you compare in case of a questionnaire which is in physical format, so the respondent they can take their own time, they can read the questions again and again and after that they can record their response. But in case of telephonic interview, that giving that much time is not possible or that is not, that is not economical and therefore it is hard to ask complex and lengthy questions. The length related issue can be dealt with in mail questionnaire. Then internet-based questionnaire provide high level of interactivity. The interview method also has an effect on the scaling technique due to issue of complexity. In personal interview, most complex scale can easily be used. But in case of telephone interview, researchers tend to prefer nominal scales. Now you know, or if you are not familiar with this thing, then you will learn it gradually because in my next tutorial, I am going to explain item writing where I will also discuss about various types of scales. Now, in a nominal scale, the responses are presented in categorical form. Say, do you have a bank account? Then the responses, alternative options given are say yes, no. So this you can say as nominal scale. Then there are some other scales like ordinal scale, interview scale, ratio scale. Now, in comparison to nominal scale, ordinal scale, the level of ordinal scale is little bit higher. Again, in comparison to ordinal scale, interval scale and ratio scale, the complexity and the level is higher than the earlier two scale, that is nominal scale and ordinal scale. So I will deal with this scale in another tutorial. In step 3, the question composition need to be determined. Once the information is specified in the researchable format and the interview method is decided, the next stage is to decide what kind of questions to be asked to the respondent. And here there are two major types of question structure. One is called unstructured questions and the other is structured questions. Now, unstructured questions are also known as open-ended questions. Why? It is because here the respondents have the liberty to express their opinion or give their responses in their own words. But in case of structured questions, or which is also known as close-ended questions, there the response categories are already stated by the investigator or already stated in questionnaire, and the respondents they need to choose one which is best described for the respondent. Now structured questions can be again classified into different types like dichotomous, multiple responses, then scales. Now dichotomous, as I have given an example, do you have bank account? Then there are two responses, say yes or no. Now if there is two categories of response, then that is called dichotomous. Now multiple response, say in the same question, do you have a bank account? Now say sometimes there may be some respondents who may feel such type of question very intrusive, like why are you asking me this question? I have a bank account or not? Why you require it? So that time, for such type of respondents, in the questionnaire, the investigator need to present some other categories or other response also besides yes or no. Yes, no, then refuse to answer. Now since it is increased than 2, and that's why it is called multiple response. Then scales. So here I am going back to the questionnaire that I have shown you earlier. Okay. So here there is an example of scale. Now see here the first question. Please read this email for each of the following. Okay. Now this question is asked to read the email that I have received from YouTube. Now the aspects given are clarity of the mail, then timeliness of the mail, and relevance of the mail to me. Now see here in the first aspect, in horizontally you see there are some categories: very good, good, acceptable, poor, then very poor. Now see, this is called a scale. This is called a scale, but this scale is in categorical form. So I'll discuss it again. Now in step 4, the researcher need to determine the individual question content. So individual question content, one significant aspect is the word. Researchers need to be very clear in the choice of words which can easily be understood in the correct manner by respondents. Wording of a question could create problems such as ambiguity, abstraction, and connotation. And to avoid this problem, researchers can take several steps, such as using ordinary words and avoid use of jargon, then avoid ambiguous words, avoid leading questions, avoid double-barreled questions, avoid generalization. So this I am discussing in my tutorial item writing. So there you will learn it better. In step 5, the investigator or the researcher need to develop the question order, form and layout. The question order, format and layout can have a significant impact on respondents' engagement. The questionnaire can be divided in 3 main parts generally. Those are forward and opening questions, generic information questions, and specific information questions. So as I already told you that sometimes there are some respondents, you will find some respondent who may find some questions very intrusive, and there may be some other respondents who can easily give response to such questions, like do you have a bank account, or say what is your monthly salary or monthly income. Some people may hesitate to give response to such type of question. Then in that situation, the researcher need to be very tactful. First, the researcher need to make the respondents comfortable, and after that, those types of question to be asked to the respondent. So the logic need to be applied. Now see what is forward and opening questions. Now forward, just I am giving an example. Say hello respondents, or greetings from such and such. Okay. Say I am stating my name. Just assume I am a researcher and I stated my name. I stated my topic of study, and I explained why it is important to have the respondent's response. So this much of information I have given in the cover page of the questionnaire, and that is called forward. And opening questions, there may be some questions which may act as a qualifying questions for the respondents. Say the researcher is going to study on use of net banking. Use of net banking, or what type of problems the consumers are facing while using net banking. So that time, the researcher need to know that who is having or who is using net banking or who is not. So the first question, say, that means the opening questions: do you use net banking, or are you accustomed with net banking? So this type of question may act as an opening question or qualifying question. Say the respondent is not familiar with net banking or never used net banking. That time, the researcher can take the decision that better not to proceed with that respondent, because that respondent is not the target population, or not the you know not the expected respondent for the researcher. Now forward and opening question, that section of the questionnaire would be followed by generic information questions. Now generic information questions, that can be again divided into two areas. One is classification information and the other is identification information. So classification information, it basically includes socioeconomic and demographic questions such as age, gender, income group, family size, etc. Then identification information are those which help the researcher to identify the respondent. Say the name of the respondent, then address of the respondent, contact number of this respondent. So if this information are sought by the researcher, then those are called identification information question. Now, it is advisable to collect classification information before identification information, as most respondents do not like their personal information collected by researchers, and this process may increase the respondents' hesitation to respond also. So, as I told you, the researcher should put such question in the beginning with which the respondents become comfortable, and gradually they are easy with the questions asked in the questionnaire. Then in the third section of a questionnaire, you should put the specific information questions. The specific information questions are questions directly associated with the research objectives, and they mostly involve various skills and are complex in nature. I have already shown you an example of skill. So there are various other skills that I will deal in the tutorial item writing. This type of questions should be asked later in the questionnaire after the rapport has been established between the researcher and respondent. So till this time, the respondent can take the researcher in some trust. In questionnaire design, there is another important aspect, and that is the format and layout of the questionnaire. It is always suggested that the questionnaire format and layout should have some type of symmetry. This can lead to high response rate. In practice, you will find that in a questionnaire, there are various parts, and those various parts, maybe say the font style, different font styles are used, and different graphics are used for attracting the respondents. Then various colors are used for easy segregation or easy classification of different sections in a questionnaire. So there are various matters that need to be considered in questionnaire designing. Now, the last but not the least stage in questionnaire design is pilot testing the questionnaire. So the design things that you applied in constructing the questionnaire or in developing the questionnaire, whether that is going to be effective or not. So to understand that, the researcher need to taste the questionnaire, and that is called pilot testing. Once the preliminary questionnaire has been developed, a researcher should assign coding to every question and test the questionnaire in a small sample of respondents to identify and eliminate potential problems. This sampling process is called pilot testing. A pilot test provides testing of all aspects of a questionnaire, including content, wording, order, form, and layout. An initial personal interview-based pilot test is recommended for all types of surveys because the researcher can observe respondents' attitude and reaction towards each question. Most researchers recommend a pilot test sample between 15 and 30 respondents. The responses obtained from the pilot test sample should be coded and analyzed, and these responses can provide a check on the adequacy of the data obtained in answering the issue at hand. So in conclusion, while every questionnaire design involves a unique set of solutions, researchers agree that a structured process can be employed in preparing an appropriate questionnaire. And that process already we have discussed in this tutorial. Various matters like various types of scale, then various types of items in a questionnaire, or various types of questions, say structured questions, unstructured questions, dichotomous question, multiple response question, scale items. So all these things I'm going to cover in my next tutorial, that is item writing. So here I am going to conclude this tutorial. So these are the sources from where I have collected the information that I have presented in the slides. So I am concluding this tutorial here. Thank you.